I swear to God I had this fixed. I updated OBS and now things aren't behaving properly. Probably should have done it right before stream, which I did. But yeah, hold on just a second. And this fucking camera will decide to work okay. Not so bad, but let's go back over here. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. I'm FreeZenon. Welcome everyone to my channel. Do leftist politics here. I know I've been gone this whole last week. We're having construction being done in our house. We had a new counter put in the kitchen. We had 2 new doors put in because we got 2 pocket doors, sliding doors, which they're old and they keep giving us problems. Now we have real doors, which is going to be nice, and they really have decent sound insulation. So that was also very nice too, because someone in this house is kind of loud. Daughter. And then we also had a new AC unit installed as well, because our old one is probably 50 years old. I mean, it was disgusting when we got it out. It's got a new air conditioner as well, which is nice because now it just works automatically based on at least its localized temperature. So it definitely makes my marriage a lot better, because the wife would just really, she did not like the noise all the time. So this one at least is intermittent and we don't have to worry about it. So it's been nice. And when we had the construction guy come, he was pretty much coming whenever I was streaming. So I didn't want to be streaming while having a bunch of construction going on in the back, right? Didn't think that would be good content. So I didn't stream since last Tuesday, actually. Yeah, so that's the big thing that's been happening with me. That's been keeping me from streaming. Our TV died also a few days ago. We have a 65-inch Vizio, which died. The wife wants me to try and fix it, which is not my thing, but I'm gonna at least try to take a look at it because there's some things we can do. So that happened. And the last thing that's happened, this was on Thursday. There was a, in our school board, as you guys know, I run for school board. Someone stepped down from our school board, and then on Thursday they're doing interviews for the replacement. So there were 9 of us who were interviewing. It was open to the public, so there was like 7 or 8, 9 people there, and each of the school board members randomly asked us a question, and we answered it. We had 2 minutes to answer, and we got through like 8 questions. So there's the coverage of it from our local news. It's a paywall, so I would use no script to get beyond it, please. Fucking paywalls. So yeah, they went through. They did ranked choice voting at the end to limit it down to their last 3, and then they voted ranked choice again for the top person. Of course, I didn't get any votes, and I wasn't going to be anywhere near there because I'm there for real and actual change. But of the 9 people that were there, of the 2 that I thought might get it were in the top 3, and one was a former school board member, and the other was a lady, which the article will talk about. She's I don't know, she has a doctorate in English, and she teaches English or literature in the UW, University of Wisconsin system. So she's the one who won that temporary seat in the school board, and she will be up for election here in this April or whatever. So that was interesting, and I will be, I've already started working on a post going through the questions that they asked us, and I will put my answers in there as well. Not just, for you guys, my stream, but also for anyone in my community who may want to know where I stand. That will be out there because we only had 2 minutes to answer, and it wasn't enough time to think, especially as slow and methodical as I am. So that was a challenge. Yeah, so that's been what's happening with me. We had construction, the TV died, and the school board thing. And I'm watching so that's primarily what I've been up to. Oh, and at work. At work, our office space is going to be turned into something else or cut in half or something. So they moved us all to different places while they're going to be ripping apart our office space. So now I'm in a kind of a room with two other people. There may be, I don't know, someone else joining us or something like that. I don't know. So that has also been a thing. Over the last 2 weeks, I've had to clean out all my stuff from my office, which was interesting. Got to throw away a bunch of stuff. And yeah, so this is Monday is when I started working in the new office space. Let's see what okay, that is it for me for what's going on for me. How about what's going on for you guys over this last week or so that I have been gone? There's been so many articles that I want to cover, and it's been it's pretty crazy. I had to really choose what all I was going to cover today. Any questions, comments, or suggestions before we get started here? Oh, no. Okay, there's an echo there. I didn't hear that. Anything, anybody? All right. Since y'all so quiet, we'll get started. Not there. Now, some of the links that we do cover here, and I don't normally say this, may end up having a paywall. If they do, go ahead and try the no script thing. I think they have it for Chrome and Firefox and so on, the no script add-on, and that should help get you through it. That's what I have to do. And thank you to Gaming Mind for bringing that up. It's really saved me a lot of problems getting access to content. All right, so here we go. Berlin buys apartments for $2.9 billion to quell housing anger. Good stuff here. This is from the 17th, so this is about a week ago, 10 days ago, a little over a week ago. Want the low, blah, blah, blah. Okay, Berlin agreed to buy 14,000. Okay, hold on. This is so annoying. 14,750 apartments from Germany's two biggest landlords for 2.46 billion euros, 2.9 billion US dollars, as public pressure to counter rising rents intensifies. Vonovia SE and Deutsche Wohnen SE are selling the units as a part of their effort to merge. The deal includes a commitment from the two companies to limit rent increases until 2026 and build 13 new apartments to try to address a housing shortage and ease public concerns about rising living costs. The return to municipal ownership gives tenants the necessary security that their apartments will be permanently in the low-cost segment. Matthias Kolatz, the city senator for finance, said Friday in an emailed statement. "We are buying with care," he said, adding that the three Berlin real estate companies that will take on the properties are in very good shape and able to successfully manage the purchase. Okay, so the city is buying it, and three real estate companies will take on the properties to manage them. Interesting. Combination of Vonovia and Deutsche Wohnen to create a housing giant with more than 500,000 residential units across Germany is being closely watched in Europe's biggest economy, which has a larger share of tenants than in most other developed nations. Affordable housing has become a hot-button political issue, and particularly in the once cheap capital. Surging rents in Berlin have sparked mass demonstrations and spurred a referendum seeking to enforce the city to expropriate large landlords. The vote on the non-binding measure will take place on September 26th. Same day as the national and Berlin elections, most political parties have vowed to try to control rent increases across the country, with the main focus on building more housing. Well, you can't. So if you want. Okay. Timing the proposed deal during a key election year with various politicians proposing to restrain rent rises seems controversial if the two landlords have hedged their future by engaging early with key stakeholders. Berlin is particularly exposed to the issue because much of its social housing was sold in the aftermath of reunification. The city's population growth stemming from its emergence as a startup hub has created a squeeze and attracted investors. Vonovia Chief Executive Officer Rolf Busch said the deal announced Friday will create more affordable, needs-based, and climate-friendly living space, especially for young families. We will only solve the challenges on the Berlin housing market together with politicians and urban society, he said in an emailed statement. Organizers of the Berlin referendum said the deal shows its concept can work to restore balance in the housing market, but criticized the price and how the transaction was negotiated. Berlin needs transparent and affordable socialization and not gifts for real estate companies hashed out in a back room. Okay, there's definitely something there, said Moheb Shafakyar, a spokesman for the referendum organizers. Yeah, that was kind of my concern when hearing about this. Now, obviously, this is over a week old. I had a smaller article on this from Reuters, but I didn't go into much detail on this. But yeah, making sure that when the city buys it, that it isn't just a hand away to the real estate people is a huge deal. Although, buying that much land, buying that much property from a real estate company is going to be a huge windfall, no matter which way you do it. All right. So now on the other end, this is here in the U.S. Now that's something this is something that our cities need to be doing. Now, like here in the United States, we've got the concept of what the fuck is it called? Community land trusts, right? Where the community buys it, and this is the way that it could have been put together over there as well. But that is a lot. It's like 14,000 places to live. So here in the U.S., that's definitely something we should be doing. The community should be buying it up, putting it in a community land trust, and managing it that way. Now, just buying the housing it is a way to help control the housing prices because they can artificially just keep it at whatever they want. But if you really want to control prices, not just for housing, but for everything else, what you need to do is not just have a nice minimum wage, but you also need to have a maximum wage. Again, it's in my policies, right? If you have a minimum wage, nice, decent, a thriving or livable minimum wage, then you have a maximum wage, and all other prices will fall between those two things. It can't be above maximum wage because, it can't be above what is affordable to the maximum wage because that's more than what people are actually making. So again, if your candidate is into inequality, if they are not talking about a maximum wage, then they are not serious about controlling prices, because that has to be a core part of it. And no maximum wage, and you're not really looking to control inequality. I know it's a radical position, but ultimately that's what it's going to come down to. Minimum wage, maximum wage. All right. Now, this is from the 19th. Investment firms aren't buying all the houses, which would be ridiculous, but they are buying the most important ones. This is from June 19th, 2 days ago. This is from Slate. There we go. The median price of an American house has increased by 28% over the last 2 years as pandemic-driven demand and long-term demographic changes send buyers into crazed bidding wars. Now, it's not so much pandemic-driven demand, it's that people are being evicted and losing their houses, and investment people are buying up the houses from which people are being evicted from, which then drives up prices. Might the fact that corporate investors snapped at 15% of U.S. homes for sale in the first quarter this year have something to do with it? That's exactly what I was saying. The Wall Street Journal reported in April that an investment firm won a bidding war to purchase an entire neighborhood worth of single-family homes in Conroe, Texas, part of a cycle of stories drumming up panic over Wall Street's increasing stake in the residential real estate. I think it was Blackstone, wasn't it? Then came the backlash as cool-headed analysts reassured us that big investors like BlackRock remains insignificant players in the housing market compared with regular old American families. That doesn't make any fucking sense. American families may buy a bunch, but ultimately, if investment firms buy a bunch of houses, they are going to raise the prices, which will automatically raise the prices and the rents for all other things in the area. It is a huge, huge deal, especially in their localized area in Texas. And this will eventually leak out into other areas as, again, it'll end up being sort of a, perhaps even a gentrification issue. As the prices go higher, people of color disproportionately cast into poverty aren't going to be able to afford it, so they're going to end up being forced out. Truth is between the two. We can panic and acknowledge Wall Street's small role at the same time. Small role? Fuck off, Slate. Although the number of houses being purchased by mega investors is currently not enough to move the market in most parts of the country, these firms' underlying structural advantage is profound and growing. Yep. Let's focus on Invitation Homes, a $21 billion publicly traded company that was spun off from Blackstone, the world's largest private equity company, in 2017. Invitation Homes operates in 16 cities, with the biggest concentration in Atlanta, where it owns 12,556 houses. So that's not much compared with the 80,000 homes sold in Atlanta each year. Invitation Homes bought 90% of the homes for sale in some zip codes in Atlanta in the early 2010s. Yeah, and this is going to have a leak-through effect as they buy these houses, raise the prices, or raise the rents. That's going to leak out into all the surrounding areas as well. It's not as small as they're trying to make it out to be. While normal people typically pay a mortgage interest rate between 2% to 4% these days, Invitation Homes can borrow money for far less. Exactly. It's getting billion-dollar loans at interest rates at around 1.4%. In practice, this means that Invitation Homes can afford to tack on an extra $5,000 to $20,000 to the purchase price of every home while getting the house at the same actual cost as a typical homeowner. While Invitation Homes uses a mixture of debt and cash from renters to buy houses, its offers are almost always all cash, which is a big leg up in a competitive market. Yep. Yeah, I was a realtor for a little bit, and cash is definitely the better thing because you don't have to worry about, waiting for that mortgage to get approved and get the money through and all that sort of stuff, right? But this is something that could be changed, right? Instead of giving these massive loans for a low interest to corporations, you give them to individuals. As a matter of fact, if you're a corporation buying houses, your interest rate should go up, maybe double of that which a homeowner can buy. One way to think about Invitation Homes' business strategy is to consider the value of the properties the firm is buying relative to the rents they charge. According to a recent SEC disclosure, Invitation Homes' portfolio of homes is worth a total of $16 billion after renovations, and the company collects about $1.9 billion in rent per year. That means it takes about 8 years of rental payments to pay back a typical house that Invitation Homes has bought. Now, that doesn't also include the increase in housing costs. Berlin rocks. Gaming, how you doing, man? Welcome. Yeah, that was cool. I only had an older article on this. If you have a newer one on this that follows the vote, that would be cool too. And this is the sort of things that we need to be doing. We need to have community land trusts going on, buying houses, and especially every city needs to be doing this. Housing first. Housing first is what we need, how we need to approach all this. Do you live near there? Do you live there? I've been to Leipzig and I've been to Weimar, and those are the only two places I've been. It's like 2 days and 3 days each. How you doing, man? Watching me on YouTube. That's fancy. Fancy. Although YouTube doesn't get my links unless I specifically share them straight to YouTube. So I have to share on Twitch, share on Facebook. Actually, I can't share on Facebook. Can I share on Twitter? I can't. Just YouTube. No, basically, all my in real life friends live there right now, so I'm gonna move there too, included when I finish. Oh, okay. I'm good. Yeah, I was off all last week because we had construction going on at the house, and when the construction dude was here, he was it was whenever I was streaming, basically. So I don't know if there was a conspiracy going on there, but I'm doing okay. Our TV died though, so that's annoying. Was way too high. Switched to Twitch. Ah, okay. Yeah. So there's like a 5-second delay, I think, between, because I'm using Restream. So I don't know if it'll be much better on Twitch. Yeah, I'm gonna have to take a look at it. The wife wants me to take a look at it before I can't afford to buy a new one now, but there may be ways that I can deal with it from what I've seen on the interwebs. For some, there's like a diode and a resistor that go bad typically, and I went to the Navy for electronics, so I could handle that. I might be able to do a factory reset or something. I don't know. I have to maybe find a weekend where I just sit down and just try and fuck with it, because it's gonna be a thing. And having all that time, it's broken. Right. That's kind of pretty much what most people say, is that it's cheaper just to buy a new one. And OLED TVs are way more expensive. Like just a 65 incher is like $1,800, whereas basically just replacing what I have for about the same price is about the same price. $1,200 or $1,300 is what I paid for this like six years ago. Yeah, $1,800. It's like $1,800 to $1,900 for I think it's a 65 or 70 inch OLED. I know. I looked at it. I was like, oh, maybe I can get an OLED now. No, I can't. Not today. Not next week. Not next year. That extra $600 markup is a bit much. It's a bit much for my taste. I'm not quite swimming that with that much money lying around. Yeah, it's maybe someday. Maybe someday they'll be affordable by us plebes, but it is not this day. Yeah, it'd be nice, but that's okay. Maybe I should get it. Maybe I can eventually afford like monitor replacements that are OLED. That might be asking for a bit much. Well, that's not gonna matter if I don't have a decent video card. I still haven't been able to get a video card either, so it's gonna be probably will be next year before I can get a video card, new monitors, and I don't know how long it's gonna take us to get a new TV. We'll see. I don't know. A monitor would be a bad idea? Why? I suppose the small size would make it the OLED less obvious, possibly. Especially with my eyes as bad as they are. Getting old. Can burn. You always have. Oh, okay. Well, that's good to know. Okay, so no OLED for my monitors then. Thanks for letting me know. Knowing's half the battle. Good to know. Yeah, I don't think there's any way I could afford an OLED anything at this point. Just the markup is just not. I can't justify it. cannot justify it. We'll see. We'll see. See what the next year brings. All right. Berlin. Okay, yeah, so 16 billion after renovations, 1.9 billion a year, and then of course they have appreciation as well. So it's going to be less than 8 years to make it back, especially when they get to control the rent, control the maintenance, and control all that sort of stuff. So the appreciation is going to get them their money back sooner than probably later. That means it takes, 8 years of rental payments. Get rid of that. The usual rule of thumb for evaluating a fair sale price, says Kundan Kishore, professor of economics at the University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee, is that price to rent ratios around 20-1. When price to rent ratios are very high, it makes more sense for consumers to rent than to buy. And when they are low, it makes more sense to buy than to rent. That Invitation Homes is getting deals twice as good as a typical home buyer shows that it's not just buying any homes, it's buying the specific houses with the greatest potential to be wealth building for the middle class. Exactly, and because they're buying these houses, that means the middle class doesn't have access to them to buy, and one of the largest ways of generating intergenerational wealth, passing it on to your children, is through houses, and people are going to be denied that. And that's a big problem. Big problem. And again, I don't know what the answer is on this. I need to figure out something for my policies, because what Berlin did was buying a shitload of houses and apartments. That is a good idea. The community land trust thing is a good thing. But I don't know what the long-term solution is for this. We've talked about potentially all housing should be publicly owned, period, full stop. That might be one way to do it. But then the issue that I have, at least here in the United States, is that so many of our property taxes pay for so many things, like school districts, right? Running for school board, it pays for school districts. Property taxes, I think, also pay for counties as well. So the binding of property taxes with government and schools and stuff like that it's hard to figure out how to deal with that, especially if it's publicly owned. You could still tax them, I suppose, have them pay taxes on it, which could still power it. I suppose that's possible too. I'm not sure. The thing that annoys me about Berlin vote is that it's not binding, and the current government announced to not give a fuck. Oh, really? Well, that's a bunch of bullshit. So was that a citizen referendum or? Yeah, non-binding votes are bullshit. Like the fucking Paris Climate Agreement, it's fucking non-binding, so it's fucking worthless. Well, fuck that noise. Like the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, one of the most amazing documents in human history, non-binding. Over 1 million people voted for yes. How many people are in Berlin? That's a crap load of people. What percentage? So like that's quality organizing opportunity if they say no. Oh yeah. 1 million people voted yes, and I bet you there's a lot more that just didn't vote. 3.7 million. Oh wow, 30%. That's pretty huge. Yeah, if they don't enact it, especially as active as Europe is when it comes to a protest, that's going to be a big thing. Why are they like people from out of country? A lot of international tourists and business people. Non-immigrant citizens? Non-citizen immigrants? Since they don't have the German citizenship, for example, and these are the groups. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That, and that's what I've said in my policies, and I heard this from some other article last year, the year before, that Everyone who lives in the area, citizens or not, should be able to vote in local elections because it does affect them. So that would be one thing that should be done. Immigrants should have a vote in how things go, at least locally. Wow. Just wow. So hopefully that turns out okay. Hopefully they work on it and they actually do that, because that's definitely what needs to be done. Fucking politicians. Well, good luck. I wish you and all Germans good luck in making that happen. Having that happen. Motherfucker. It's not exactly accurate that investors are buying every single house they can find, as some have suggested. Of course not. If that were true, their market share in the United States wouldn't be a piddling 15%. If they don't do it, yeah, definitely. Hopefully they'll get their heads out of their asses and do something good for your community. But, politicians aren't known for giving a fuck about the people. But if they don't, let the burning begin. Yeah, definitely. Get that Green Party out there, organize, and let's get 2 million in the streets. You guys in Europe could do it, but I don't think we could do it here in the United States. Too brain damaged. They're really buying up the stock of relatively inexpensive single-family homes built since the 1970s in growing metro areas. They mostly ignore bigger and more expensive houses, especially ones that are move-in ready. Oh, wealthy boomers. You can do it too. I'll believe that when I see it. We did our bunch in the 60s and 70s, and really haven't been able to do it since then. At least as far as I remember. Maybe there have been a million man, marches or whatever, but not so much since then. As well, kind of special. They have been almost more left leaning than the rest of me. Oh, okay, cool. Well, then then they should be able to do it. It'd be non-binding, but if they're left leaning, their asses should be able to do it. Should be able to get it done. It's important. Wealthy boomers in the nation's finance and tech bros nab those properties, and they're also ignoring cities with stable or shrinking populations like Providence and Pittsburgh, of course. But investors are depleting the inventory of the precise houses that might otherwise be obtainable for younger, working and middle-class households in the cities where those workers can easily find good-paying jobs, like Atlanta. 22% of home purchases, according to Redfin data. Charlotte, 22%, and Phoenix, 20%. More importantly, they're able to scour those markets scientifically and systematically to make cash offers on the most attractively priced properties, while normal people buy houses when they actually need to move somewhere. Savvy investors buy houses several years before a bunch of people need to move to an area. Whether they're tracking where major employers are building new offices or looking at public school enrollment data, being ahead of the market gives the big firms a big leg up. Yep, true statement. True statement. And it's going to be devastating on wealth building. In case you were assuming that converting houses to rentals would flood the market and bring down rents, don't get your hopes up. Yep. As Invitation Home tells its investors, we operate in markets with strong demand drivers, high barriers to entry, and high rent growth potential. Of course, because they want to maximize return on investment, because fuck the people. Fuck investors. There you go. That's right. Fuck capitalism. And the sociopathy of destroying people's lives for fun and profit. Fuck. While renting might make sense for some people, especially people who move a lot, it often sucks, particularly in the United States, where we don't have especially strong protections for tenants. Oh, yep, tenants' rights. Exactly. The business strategy of the country's biggest landlords, Invitation Homes and American Homes for Rent, does not seem to be make renting with us so delightful that if my tenants have to move cities, they'll specifically seek out another property owned by our company. Based on reports from Reuters, the New York Times, and the Atlantic, it appears to be closer to squeeze our tenants for every penny, avoid making repairs, black mold and raw sewage accumulate and count on the fact that moving is a huge, expensive hassle. There you go. That's investment for you. Profit incentive is a really nice way to run society. Increase rent to make more money and reduce salary to make more money. Fine. Yes, exactly. That's exactly right. And that's the tension within methods of exchange, as I always share here all the time. And this is exactly what is going to happen. Not make repairs, keep raising rents, and so on. And what they should be doing is making it so enjoyable that they, just like they're saying here, make renting so delightful that they seek out that company. That's the way it should be, but it's not, because that's not where the money is. And then people are gonna have to rent from these places, from these businesses, and they're gonna own most of a shitload of the houses in the area, or the rental property in the area. The houses and the apartments, and they're all gonna be crappy at some point. There's not much they can do it. But enjoyable is profitable. Well, it should be, and it could be. You know, if you got, it could be that way if you owned enough property. Like if you had two cities that people move back and forth between, and you owned a crap load of property in one and a crap load in the other, that could exactly be the thing. But of course, owning that much property, as we're talking about here, is highly problematic. And it should be required for large investment firms like this to have automatic tenants' rights, tenants' rights organizations, like unionizing the tenants. That should be required to help form a stock against the exploitation of the large corporations. God, I need to add this into my policies. I need to add this to my policies. Our current system of encouraging home ownership is by no means perfect, and it places a lot of unnecessary risk on the balance sheets of the middle class, and it's worked out financially for most of the people who have been lucky enough to own a home. White people, what? The implicit and explicit subsidies the government has given to Americans buying their first homes have been the biggest handout the American middle class, the American white middle class, has ever received. A handout notably, okay, here we go, denied to black Americans for much of the 20th century. One explanation for the current size of racial wealth gap. Yeah, and this is, we've read this stuff too, right? That, again, intergenerational wealth is largely transferred by home ownership, and people of color disproportionately cast into poverty, don't have access to it. And therefore, you know, it takes about 20 years to get out of poverty, and whatever socioeconomic demographic your family is in, it's most likely what you're going to be in. Therefore, the majority of people of color end up being impoverished. Right? Can I get a yay? That's fucking stupid. Fuck capitalism. Lori Goodman, Vice President of Housing Finance Policy at the Urban Institute, points out that policymakers could take steps to level the playing field between investors and the rest of us. Yeah, exactly. She told me that buyers who need to borrow money using Federal Housing Administration loans, or those who need a rehab loan for a fixer-upper, have a particularly tough time competing against Wall Street firms. FHA paperwork often gets delayed, slowing down the purchase process, so home sellers often don't want to sell to FHA buyers, even if their bids are competitive. That's a solvable problem. And loans for properties that need renovations, Goldman says, are both cumbersome and expensive. Rethinking the process for FHA and rehab loans could put individuals on a more equal footing. Or, I mean, for yeah. I don't know much about FHA loans. I know when my wife and I were looking for a house, not 2006, that or we abolish capitalism. That would be another one. That would definitely be one of them. Preferable. Burn it to the ground. Like when my wife and I were looking for houses in 2006, like in my hometown here, that the housing prices were like 140, 160. Unless fixing capitalism. Exactly. That the houses were like 140 to 180. 130 to 180, and they still needed $40 to $50,000 of work just to walk in, just to be able to move in. And it was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. And as much as I wanted to live in my hometown where, you know, and all that, we couldn't do it. It was just so fucking expensive. It was ridiculous. It hasn't gotten much better since then, as far as I'm aware. So, but we did eventually find a house outside of town, which is about, 20 minutes away, and we got a decent price on it, at least. And it wasn't like that, because there's no way I could afford that. That was just ridiculous. Yeah, the fixing capitalism loop, right? That's pretty much what all my policies are here. How do we fix the harms and exploitation of capitalism so that it sucks less and people suffer less? That's all this is right here. Parts 1, parts 2. Let's help fix capitalism, and then here let's evolve beyond capitalism. All right. There we go. Housing is a human right. Someday, maybe. I don't know. I need some good articles on what to do about the housing issue. I don't know what to do for my policies. I need something. Need to figure it out. All right. Next. Bitcoin. Bitcoin takes a hit as China declares all cryptocurrency transactions illegal. Not being able to afford an apartment in the hometown is tough. Yeah, it was an apartment. It was a house that we were looking for. I think rents around here are actually okay. I think rents are reasonable, but housing prices are fucking ridiculous. Well, I know there's some for like 500 or 600, so it's not that bad for rent wise, but houses are ridiculous. Yeah, and that's pretty much what we're gonna see, right? With BlackRock buying houses, these large corporations buying houses, they can keep the prices, well, a little bit lower, so that people are essentially forced to rent. The decision was made in order to safeguard people's properties and maintain economic, financial, and social order, People's Bank of China had said. Okay, so I'm kind of interested in this decision. Now, I know, if I remember correctly, China was looking at launching their own cryptocurrency, that they were probably looking at replacing the International Reserve or something like that. Yeah, fuck crypto, exactly. So this I find interesting. Hopefully with this decision that there will be a flood of video cards in the market. That would be nice, because I need a new video card. It's the last piece. Well, it's not the last piece I need for my rig. A video card, then 2 new monitors I need. But I guess we'll see how this all plays out. Shanghai, China intensified crackdown on cryptocurrency trading on Friday, vowing to root out illegal activity, hitting Bitcoin and other major coins and pressuring crypto and blockchain-related stocks. This is September 24th, so this is recent. I don't remember specifically. They might have been talking about it. I'm not sure. I guess we'll see what they have to say here. 10 Chinese government agencies, including the central bank, as well as banking, securities, and foreign exchange regulators, said in a joint statement they would work closely to maintain a high-pressure clampdown on trading of cryptocurrencies. The People's Bank of China said cryptocurrencies must not circulate in markets as traditional currencies, and that overseas exchanges are barred from providing services to mainland investors via the internet. Okay, so they must not circulate in markets as traditional currencies. Huh. People's Bank of China also barred financial institutions, payment companies, internet firms from facilitating cryptocurrency trading. So yeah, they're getting rid of it completely. The move comes after China's State Council or Cabinet vowed in May. Here we go. So we're talking about it in May. Crack down on Bitcoin mining and trading as part of efforts to fend off financial risk, sparking a major sell-off of cryptocurrencies. Oh, that's interesting. With as high as it went, I find that hard to believe that the price went down, because Bitcoin went up to like 60 grand or some shit like that. I mean, I made 10 times my investment off what Bitcoin I did have. Chinese government will resolutely clamp down on virtual currency speculation and related financial activities and misbehavior in order to safeguard people's properties and maintain economic, financial, and social order. The People's Bank of China said in a statement on the website, in response to the latest move, Bitcoin, the world's largest cryptocurrency, dropped over 6% to 42,000, having early been down 1%. Well, that's not a whole lot. Yeah, it's a bit. Smaller coins, which typically rise and fall in tandem with Bitcoin, also tumbled. Ether fell 10%, while XRP a similar amount. There's a degree of panic in the air, said Joseph Edwards, head of research at cryptocurrency broker Enigma Securities in London. Crypto continues to exist in a gray area of legality across the board in China. I don't know how it exists in a gray area when they said no more. Okay. What exactly? What gray area? What the fuck kind of gray area? What are you smoking? Are we reading different things here, Joseph? I don't know. The move also hit cryptocurrency and blockchain related shares. And this is the one thing that annoys the shit out of me about stocks is they fluctuate based off people freaking out over news. They go, rah, rah. It's like, it's a temperature gauge for how rich people feel is what the stock market is. And it's just like, when I was thinking about doing investing before my hours got cut in half, at some point I would have definitely gotten into stocks, but I was looking at doing options trading to help, take advantage of the volatility in the market because, well, stuff like this. U.S. listed miners ride blockchain Marathon Digital and Bit Digital slipping between 6.3% and 7.5% in pre-market trading. China-focused SOS dropped 6.1%, while San Francisco crypto exchange Coinbase Global fell 3.4%. Okay, China-focused SOS. I'm wondering why it only dropped 6.1%. Interesting. The National Development and Reform Commission said it was launching a thorough nationwide cleanup of cryptocurrency mining. Such activities contribute little to China's economic growth, spawn risk, consume a huge amount of energy, no shit Sherlock, and hamper carbon neutrality goals. Oh, okay, yep, that is true. All the other things they talk about, okay, whatever, but this is really the big thing here. It's a complete and total fucking waste of energy, and all that energy that they're using, a lot of it is carbon-based, and that is the real big problem. It's an imperative to wipe out cryptocurrency mining, a task key to promoting high-quality growth of China's economy, the NDRC said in a notice to local governments. Also, they banned coal funding abroad. So they're not investing in coal abroad or purchasing it? Yeah, that's awesome. That's exactly what they should be doing. Like I've said before, the single benefit to autocracy or tyranny is that when they decide to do something, that shit gets done and there's no conversation to be had about it. Like China, there's an advantage to the autocratic government they have. They're, getting rid of cryptocurrency, getting rid of coal, right? They decided to, deal with poverty and that sort of thing, so they just went ahead and did it. But that's pretty much the only advantage to autocracies. Now, of course, that can go both ways, right? They can decide to murder people, or they can decide to help people. Whatever it is they decide to do, they get it done. Vital currency mining had been a big business in China before crackdown that started earlier this year, accounting for more than half the world's cryptocurrency supply. Holy garbage. Half of the world's cryptocurrency was in China. The NDRC said it will work closely with other government agencies to make sure financial support and electricity supply will be cut off from mining. The national planning body also urged local governments to come up with a specific timetable and roadmap to eradicate such activities. Wow. To be fair to China, they are a major force for good in the world. Well, I'm not gonna. There definitely have been some good things there. We can definitely say that. I wouldn't know if I wouldn't necessarily say they're a major force, but there's definitely some good things going on like this. You know, the coal, Bitcoin, trying to reduce poverty and stuff like that. Definitely. Previous restrictions issued by local governments paralyzed the industry as miners dumped machines in despair or sought refuge in places such as Texas or Kazakhstan. Texas. Fucking Texas. Fucking Texas. All right, there you go. So that is a thing. China doing some good stuff. That's good. Well, it's, you know, United States definitely has some things to learn from China, that's for sure. They're getting rid of coal. They're getting rid of Bitcoin. Trying to get rid of poverty. Those are some good things that this country should be doing as well. But there's no money to be made in doing that, so whatevs, yo. All right. All right. Next. Please teach your children about corporate criminals. Wouldn't that be a thing? All right, let's see here. Please teach your children about corporate criminals. Not gonna happen, you think? At least not in school, exactly. And that's, I haven't really, what do I have? I don't think I haven't really, actually, I have talked about that a little bit in our education section. Let me, socioeconomic, okay, hold on. I have something mentioned on this. Okay, so education. Okay, we should talk frankly about a critical analysis of the many failures of economic systems, including systemic and structural violence, such as poverty, racism, income inequality, and so on. So I do mention that in here. That's the sort of things we should be talking about in our schools. All right, today's school children are engulfed by corporate apps, software, and textbook biased toward the corporate definitions of an economy and myths about free markets. This is from Ralph Nader, who's kind of a leftist here. One of the things that, I don't know if you heard, did you get here at the beginning, Gaming Mind? As I was talking about, on Thursday, we had sort of a public interview process for the open board seat on our school board. And so we had our interviews there. Of course, I didn't get it. But one of the things that came out of that I updated my policies with is that we need that, like here in Wisconsin, you saw us in Discord? Okay, good. That our school district should work with the other school districts to work with the University of Wisconsin to create, shall we say, an open source textbook cooperative to create open source textbooks for at least our state, if not, the United States or something like that. All the University of Wisconsin people should be getting together and doing that, even as part of like their grad work perhaps, or undergrad work, and it could be updated every year with what's going on. We need to have textbooks that are up to date, but also lacking a bias, or be as lacking bias as possible. And we're definitely not going to get that, with communities deciding what's going to go in those textbooks. I mean, Texas is one of the largest areas in the United States that pretty much determines what most textbooks are going to be, because once they buy and once they determine what's in their curriculum, that's pretty much what goes for many states, districts across the country. And that is such a big fucking problem. And if we are able to work, the unit can be trusted here. Well, it's better I think it's a safer bet to trust universities than it is to trust local governments or even state governments. Not that, there's money involved in those universities as well, because the privatization of, well, at least the privatization of education here. So they're more likely to give a better quality textbook than state or local government, where it's all about politics. If you get the experts in there putting it together, hopefully we'll get a much better result. I mean, unless we get rid of money, I think that's probably the closest we're going to get to a fair, possibly even critical analysis of whatever. All right. If you think elementary, middle, and high school students know too little history, geography, and government, try asking them about the corporations that command so many hours of their day, their attention, what they consume, and their personal horizons. I guess Howard Zinn. Howard Zinn published A Young People's History of the United States, 2009, to go with his best-selling pioneering work, A People's History of the United States, 1980. I bought this. It is amazing. It is an amazing fucking book. It really looks at the history of the United States, warts and all, and it says, these things are bad. We did it. That's just the way it is. Maybe I need to get this for my daughter. But he didn't do justice to all modern corporate controls of just about every facet of American life, including educational institutions. It is a really amazing book. If you're into American history, that is. It's a really, really amazing book. Really is. I'm going to have to buy this for my daughter. I have to get this for her. Definitely. Today's corporate plutocracy is at a different level of penetration altogether. Right, because the level of inequality it's the highest it's ever been in this country, and corporations have been getting larger and larger. We've got supranational corporate conglomerates with budgets and incomes larger than most countries. And until our children understand the harms of capitalism, harms of money, it's going to be hard for them to be a force for, I don't want to say a force for good, because they still can't be. They still see the problems, but they don't know what the core problem is. And schools aren't going to teach them that, but we need to teach them this. And that's why I tell my daughter this stuff. I know well enough that I can try and tell her, and hopefully she can educate some of her friends as well. Today's school children are engulfed by corporate apps and software, textbook biased toward the corporate definitions of an economy. Yes, oh my God, and myths about free markets. Yes. This is a huge part of that problem, the capitalism that has capitalistic propaganda has infected our schools and the way they talk and present things. If you want to see kind of a decent breakdown of why economics is a bunch of bullshit, part of my required reading, Kate Raworth's book, Donut Economics, like the first part of her book kind of goes through some of that, or like all throughout her book, she kind of tears apart why economics in and of itself is kind of just bullshit. It's based on so many false myths and false assumptions and that sort of a thing. It's such an amazing read. She just rips it apart, tells us, is the book here? Here, okay, here's the Amazon link. Good book, really good book. Back over here. There you go. For years, free school materials and videos produced or sponsored by business groups, including the coal and nuclear industries, have flooded elementary classes. Our report, Hucksters in the Classroom, A Review of Industry Propaganda in Schools by Sheila Hardy, 1979, documented this mercantile assault on education. Students even take tests designed by corporate institutions. Yes, look at all this stuff. Yes. So much problems. So many good books to read. Oh, I know, right? There's just not enough time. Not enough time. Yes, this is a problem, and we need to. This is a big problem here in the United States because of the privatization of our education system, and the continuing cuts that we have to our education system. That's one of the reasons why we need to nationalize our education system, and basically on our budget, on our national budget, that should be one of the largest things we spend money on. If what we're spending on education doesn't dwarf almost everything else, then we're probably doing it wrong. The whole school system is designed to prepare us for work and be obedient. Yes, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And that's the problem with it. Definitely here. It's a vested. The way we teach in schools is a vestige of the industrial era. Late 1800s, early 1900s, in that era, and we still haven't gotten beyond that. And again, when we look at my policies, we look at the Nordic countries and look at how they're teaching, and that's kind of where my ideas are based on. It's about compassion, empathy. It's teaching children to work together in cooperative projects. It's non-comparative, so it's based individually and that sort of a thing. And that's really about individual growth and finding your strength and leaning into it and doing what you can, trying to be the best person you can be. And that's really what we need to be aiming at, creating great, amazing adults, not just slaves to a fucked up system that's just gonna chew them up and spit them out. Oh, and speaking of that, at my school board thing, there were 9 of us. I was the third from the left, and the 2 people to my left, the last 2 people were conservatives. One specifically, he was specifically saying, well, he's talking down about what I was talking about, and then gave his right-wing conservative viewpoint, and I was like, oh my god. So that was interesting. That was super interesting. My issue with conservatives and all that. But it was interesting to hear him talk about it. He's also anti-mask. He's also, he was really against teaching compassion and empathy. Yes, teaching compassion and empathy in the schools, and he said we need to leave raising our children to the fathers, because he was a conservative right-wing Christian dude, though he didn't really lean into the Christian stuff at all. It was just the conservative is. Yeah, it was like, okay, you do you, boo. I feel sad for your kids. He also said he has a gay child as well, so I don't know how well that's turning out. Maybe that's something he's gotten beyond because he's had to experience it. And that's typically what happens with right-wingers who have to deal, who typically like against gay marriage or whatever. They eventually, if they have a child who's gay, then everything changes for them, and that's pretty much what happens a lot. Or they end up kicking him out and all that sort of bullshit, right? But for a lot of conservatives, they are the way they are because of ignorance, because they haven't prayers for the gay child. Yeah, it could be. I'm not going to say I don't know the guy. I don't know how right-winger he is. Maybe he's a great father and he accepts his kid. That could very well be. I don't really know. It sounds like he probably does. I think the kid is fine. But I don't really know. But for a lot of conservatives, they are the way they are because of ignorance. And once they get access to whatever they are ignorant upon, in this case like homosexuality or poverty or something like that, and they have personal experience with it, then things change. And that's a large part of why my educational policies are based upon making sure our children experience a lot of things. They need to experience diversity so that they have nothing to be afraid from Muslim people or black people or white people or whatever it is. The more our children know, the more they understand, the less they have to fear, then the less they are going to be, ignorant, bigoted, or conservative. To an extent, the point of my policies is to prevent conservatism from even being the thing. At the end, we are just all product of our environment, so happy to know they can change if exposed to new experiences. Yeah, and that's a lot of what it is, and that's a lot of what my policies are all based on. It's about preventing people from being conservative because they get access to the things that they might be afraid of, and then they won't be. Like we've watched this video before, right? This black guy befriended like over 200 KKK members and got them to leave their bigoted ways. And that's really what it comes down to. These people, as I talk about, right, the humanity's terminal disease, the disease of separation, they have this connection to a certain aspect of human experience. Black people, gay people, women, right? And because of this broken connection or connection that was never formed there, they are ignorant and therefore bigoted and hateful and all this other stuff towards this aspect of their life. This even goes to animals and so on. So we try through our education system to make sure that they have access and very strong connections to every single aspect of humanity. So fucking toxic, yeah, brings out the worst people, and you can't even blame the people because they've been educated their whole life. Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Well, it's not so much they're educated to be bigots. It's a biopsychosocial result of inequality and fear, and yes, the toxic individualism that is a part of capitalism, because as inequality goes up, social trust goes down, tribalism goes up, and then yes, bigotry and fear and stuff goes up as well, and then everything goes to hell in a handbasket, just like this. It's the toxicity of the separation, which is visceral to capitalism because of the, quote, tension within methods of exchange. The tension within methods of exchange explains why that is a thing. That's exactly that. Yeah, it's very toxic, and because it pits people against each other, it makes people fearful and feeling alone, like they can't do anything because the very system is trying to kill them for fun and profit, right? Ugh. Oh, capitalism. 11-year-olds have asked me, what is a corporation? Teenagers ask, what's corporate crime, or what's a company union? These are the same youngsters who click on the handcuffing fine print contracts of internet companies that own social media apps such as Instagram and TikTok. These are the same youngsters who are lied to daily by corporations about harmful junk foods and drugs, and whose parents overwhelmingly work in anti-union offices and factories. Yeah, and this, the infection of corporate propaganda is horrific, and it's lied to daily about harmful junk foods and drugs. Yes, exactly. And that, Exxon and the fossil fuel industries have been lying to us, funding think tanks and shit like that to lie to us about the pollution. Then Marlboro, right, in the 70s or whatever, paid scientists and people to lie to us about smoking and so on and so forth. There's always it's the return on investment for propaganda for any given industry or company is much higher than actually fixing the problem. There's more profit in lying to the people than there is in actually fixing the issue. Murdering people for fun and profit. That's what it all is. Forget about students knowing or learning about the commons, although they listen to music broadcast on the public airwaves and probably have visited a national park. For more on the commons, see Think Like a Commoner, short introduction to the life of the commons. We've read one article on this. Maybe we'll take a look at this next. I don't know. But it is an interesting concept. Students haven't studied corporate welfare, even though tax-paying parents subsidize these government giveaways, handouts, and bailouts to demanding, mismanaged, or criminal corporations with power. Well, this isn't technically correct from the MMT aspect, but okay. Schools Forever this right here is part of that victimization of the capitalistic propaganda, right? Because that's not how monetary systems actually work, at least here in the United States or in other countries where we have our own currency. Schools Forever have separated students from giant slices of reality, historical and contemporary. Much of this ignored or distorted reality shapes present conditions, such as the various controls of the many by the few. But today's corporate plutocracy is at a different level of penetration altogether. Shucking past taboos, corporate marketeers hard sell directly to children, bypassing or undermining parental authority. What they sell is obesity, diabetes, promiscuity, dangerous addictions, and violence in their merciless entertainment programs and narratives about armed force, however illegal it may be. Yeah, and this... Okay, so I'm gonna tell you this. My daughter and I, we watch lots of things together, mostly superhero stuff, stuff where there is violence, and I begin to worry about that. I mean, I turned out just fine that way because we were giving her the right values and so on, so that shouldn't be an issue. But still, it's like they're talking about here. The primary what they sell here in this country, the United States, is violence, right? And it's everywhere. They don't have anything about. They don't, like a lot of movies aren't about cooperation. They're not about diversity. They're not about, compassion or things of that nature. It's all about violence and world-ending things. Some of this may be an American thing. Like there is one thought that linguists thought that a lot of the reasons why we have so many action films is because we, in English, have a crap load of verbs of sorts, which many other, languages may not have. No, this peaceful and democracy-loving country, right? We're bringing democracy. Just say the word oil, bitches, and we'll bring the bombs. I know, right? Maybe it has more to do with the level of inequalities. The inequality goes up, corporate control goes up, the exploitation, the poverty and suffering goes up. Therefore, the violence in media and stuff like that goes up as well because of the general sociopathy that results in the society because of the inequality and the exploitation. Huh. Interesting. Like getting her to watch Star Trek Next Generation or Cosmos. We've watched Cosmos before, but she really wants to watch. She basically says if there's no blood, she doesn't want to watch it. It's like, well, guess what? We're not going to watch anything else unless you watch these other things too, because we need to balance that out with Cosmos and Star Trek The Next Generation. Because Star Trek The Next Generation, that was kind of key for not just Star Trek in general. It's kind of the key for, generations, my parents' generation, my generation, and even generations after, for having a much stronger call to empathy and understanding other people. Trying to tell me the GDP of a country doesn't tell me how well the people of the country. I don't know if I can admit that. I don't want the CIA to come and get me. But yeah, ultimately that's exactly what it says. That's exactly right. We need different metrics. It's base space communism stuff. That's exactly right. That's what Star Trek is. It's really good. What I would do, I'm biased from my generation, but actually go and watch the original series. Watch like 4 or 5 episodes, just so you can kind of see, William Shatner and what the original was. There's some good stuff in there. I actually was brought up on that. And then Star Trek The Next Generation, which is the thing that I really grew up on. I haven't really watched any of the other ones beyond that. Like DS9 or whatever else. It's mostly The Next Generation is mine. But watch some of the original ones so you can really appreciate where it came from and then where it went to with The Next Generation. It's really good. It's really good. Especially like one of the big quotes on for resource-based economies is comes from The Next Generation. I don't know if I have it. If I don't have it in one of my posts, I sure as fuck should. Nope, not here. If I can't find it in here, I'll find the quote for you. It's an amazing quote. It's amazing. It's like a lot of resource-based economy people quote this, and I know I do. Okay, what? Oh, I don't have it. I am such a loser. How could I not have this in here? Okay, Star Trek quote, Picard, beyond money. Here it is. Hopefully I don't get hit for this. Is this the one? This isn't the exact one. Let's take a look at this. Okay, this is really quiet. Wow, this is low.
You see, money doesn't exist in the 24th century.
No money? You mean you don't get paid?
The acquisition of wealth is no longer the driving force in our lives. We work to better ourselves and the rest of humanity.
That is, in essence, what a resource-based economy is. That is the goal. Let me see. Yeah, I think this is from it. The acquisition of wealth is no longer the driving force in our lives. We work to better ourselves and the rest of humanity. Okay, so that's what that one said. There's another one where he says it where he's talking to a guy. Anyhow, you get the idea. So that's the quote. So, and that's what we should be teaching our children. It's not about, you know, I went off on a huge tangent here. Where would I go from? Okay, we're talking about violence and stuff. Yeah, so getting my daughter to watch Star Trek, just so we can get to that sort of a thing and ask those questions is it's important. Because it's been a huge, it's affected many, you know, my generation, my parents' generation after. So yeah, definitely watch Star Trek. Again, watch a few of the original series with William Shatner, then do Star Trek Next Generation, then do whatever you want after that. It's a little push. Do it. I'm going to quiz you next week. How about that? Yeah, I have to get my daughter to watch this as well. And the new Cosmos series came out as well, which I haven't had a chance to watch either. I need to get her to watch that too. So we may have to once I get a TV again, then we may have to intersperse the Star Trek and the Cosmos with the blood and violence. It is ambitious. But I will get it done. It's important for her upbringing to have access to those things. It is, and that's a lot of why this is a problem. They're not. Our right-wing people have a lot of control over our local education systems, and therefore they try and drum it out. And a lot of, you know, right-wing organizations and churches and stuff like that work towards getting on these boards to make sure the education gets fucked over. But the universities is much harder. And that's where critical thinking and that sort of stuff is really activated or attempted to activate in our people. But it's hard to undo the programming, the brain damage done in, you know, high school and stuff like that by the time you get there. So I can't believe I was a lib. I was living a dream world. Well, there's a lot to learn. Undoing the programming that we've had from all these years. You know, the capitalism and the corporations are very good at what they do. Return on investment for brainwashing us through propaganda is it's very, very high. Yes. That would be, yeah, again, with economics itself being just a pile of garbage that's self-referencing and doesn't make any sense. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there isn't a whole lot of critical thinking there. It's blindly believe the myths and the narratives we have here and the assumptions we have here, which are all faulty, and push the button and just believe. Yeah, exactly. Narratives about the armed force. Okay, in terms of sheer time, range, and exposure, and planned peer group pressures, corporations are raising our children day and night. Yeah, discussing brainwashing in school, for example, in dictatorships, while being, yeah. It's the how apparent or obvious or dogmatic the brainwashing is. The corporations they have better marketing and they're a bit more subversive in it, whereas autocracies and dictatorships are very nationalistic, right? They're brainwashing you into the nationalism and all that sort of stuff. It's just the level of how obvious they are about it. Oh my God. Big companies do strategic planning about everything affecting our children. There are no longer adequate limits and boundaries on corporatism or protections of commercial free zones. Well, it's hard to do that. Like in our school districts, I think they have Apple. Actually, they had apples. So, the school district either bought the apples or they were given apples or they're given Macs by Apple. But they have Google-based stuff now. So just with that, and also using Word or Microsoft, you already have that brainwashing. You're getting people already used to that, so you already have that vendor lock-in. So it's hard to get beyond that. It's getting worse. Eyewear for augmented reality from Facebook and rapidly expanding artificial intelligence induced dependency and more sedentary living. People from Bill Joy to Stephen Hawking to Elon Musk have strongly warned about these emerging technologies and the consequential loss of freedom and democracy. I'd like to invite some open-minded educators to consider a 6-hour curricula for late middle school through high school students on the modern global corporation. Ooh. Hour 1 could be called Big Corporations Are Different from You and Me, illuminating this fast-dominating artificial person with all the rights of real humans, yet structurally escaping from responsibility. A status of privilege and immunities under corporate lawlessness. Hour 2 could be devoted to the history of corporate powers, so heavily characterized by the cost of their amassing wealth, cost to workers, communities, small businesses, voters, consumers, patients, and our governing ways, and yes, students. Having been told repeatedly about how companies built America, no, that was slaves. That was slaves. Slaves built America. Students should learn about all the no's. Corporations were operationally entrenched against the abolition of slavery, women's suffrage, union organizing, minimum wage, universal health care. Might fall asleep. Okay, all right. No problem, man. Thank you. I'm glad to see you again, that you're doing okay. If you fall asleep, go ahead and do it. You can fall asleep to the soothing voice of me raging against capitalism. Hopefully it'll help you fall asleep better. Okay, yes. So this is important. Having been told repeatedly about how companies built America, students should learn about all the no's. Corporations were operationally entrenched against the abolition of slavery, women's suffrage, union organizing, the minimum wage, universal health insurance, early solar energy, mass transit, public campaign financing, and governmental institutions accountable to citizenry, not having the best interest of people in mind. Odd, yeah. That's got to be wrong. I can't even believe that. The most recent big no's are against consumer, labor, and environmental justice, and of course, waging peace instead of forever wars of mayhem and profit have filled volumes of documentation. Hour 3 might run students through all of the attempts and reforms by the American people to rein in the destructive, unjust excesses of large companies and their controlling ideology of corporatism. Yeah, and that's pretty much what most of our laws are. It's all about taking the harms of capitalism, the exploitation, and the poverty and the war and the suffering, and try and mitigate the harms visceral to capitalism. That's what most of our laws are. What were the results from all those widespread protests, regulatory actions, prosecutions, and electoral reforms? What are the successes of the peace movement, environmental groups, and initiatives by workers, consumers, creators, and defenders of the commons, such as the public land and public airwaves, investors, and savers for justice and the common good? Yeah, so, oh my God, what happened to the corporate tax system, the drive for shareholder rights and corporate democracy, and most importantly, the rule of law of corporate power? This is some good ass shit that's going on here. This shouldn't be just 6 hours. This should be like taught every single fucking year. Hour 4, 5, and 6 will to be continued. That is, if we hear from people interested enough in having this proposal described further. Fuck yeah. Go, Ralph Nader. Great article. I like it. I'm going to share this to my... Do you sleep right now? Okay, man. Thank you so much. Get some sleep. See you next time. All right. Really good article here. And I do talk about this in my policies a little bit like I showed you, but this goes into a lot more depth than what I have. But this is, if you're really looking at what I would do, it'd be something similar to this. This is exactly what we need to be talking about in our schools. Okay, think like a commoner. Okay, this is a book, so we're not going to go through that. All right, any questions, comments, and suggestions so far? Anybody? Anybody? Anything? Anybody? All right. Climate psychologist says neither gloom and doom nor extreme solution obsessed optimism is the best way to discuss climate change productively. Now, I partially have this because I think this is something I may need to hear. Because as I say, my stream goes from we're totally fucking doomed, we're all going to die, life is going to be extinct on this planet, to, well, here's a bunch of ways we can help prevent that, right? So I'm definitely both sides of this, both sides of this. Especially, my policies. How big are my policies here? I'm not sure how many pages my environment and sustainability is, but it's pretty big. I just added some stuff to it today, actually. Let's check it out. Let's see how many pages it is. Can I get pages? Okay, it's 45 pages printed like this. So my environmental pages are 45 pages long. There you go. So yeah, I go from we're doomed to here's a whole bunch of ways we can fix it. Let's see what they have to say. Communicating about climate change effectively is critical to get people to engage with it productively, according to climate psychologist Renee Lertzman. And right now, communications about climate change are not helping. People are scared. I can't believe there's actually... Is there an actual degree, climate psychologist? I'm curious about that now. Almost 3 in 4 people, 72% worldwide, are worried that global climate change will harm them personally at some point in their lifetime, according to survey data from the nonpartisan Pew Research Center. Almost half of young people, 45%, say their feelings about climate change negatively impact their daily lives, as it should, while 77% say the future is frightening with regard to climate change. It is, according to a survey of 10,000 young people across 10 countries released this month by academics. Yeah, and to be fair, it should be. I mean, my daughter's 12, and she's going to be the one who's going to possibly reach 2100 when, and living through riots, protests, people starving, mass starvation with crops being cut in half and droughts and everything on fire and stuff like that. So younger kids, there's a good reason why they're freaking out, because everything's going to die. That fear needs to be acknowledged and worked through individually, in the companies we work for, in local communities, in government, and in organizations, says Lertzman. Only after that can we productively discuss how to prepare, adapt, and fight. That is fucking wrong. Okay, to be harsh, right? This is wrong. How to prepare, adapt, and fight. It's this fucking simple. The government needs to get off their fucking ass, pass some fucking laws, and save humanity from extinction. It's that simple. There you go. If the government, like I've said here, right? If the United States is not the vanguard for the war against climate change, humanity is going to go extinct in the next 200 years. The only way we can productively discuss it is if the people in Congress are willing to do that. But of course, they're not going to do that because they are not paid by their corporate owners to solve the problem. There's no money to be made in saving humanity from extinction. The following are excerpts of Lertzman's comments in a video interview with CNBC. They have been edited for brevity and clarity. Getting from me to we. There's some truth in there. In actuality, no one, and I don't care if you're the biggest multinational company on the planet, no one actor right now is able to do it all. No one on its own is going to be enough. Okay, well, that is fair. Although the United States, if the United States was the one who started it all, the United States could be the domino, the first domino that would start everything. We are the richest country, the most powerful country in the world, and so on and so forth. And that's really what it's going to take, because the United States does not get, and we are the largest terrorist organization in the world. War is devastating, and coups are devastating to the environment, directly and indirectly. So if the United States is not there at the beginning and one of the largest working for it, it's definitely not going to get done. So the United States could be the one that could usher in the political and economic capital to get it all done globally. Not necessarily doing it by itself, but them setting an example and using their political power to get others to want to do it as well. What I think this crisis is actually inviting us to step into is a fundamentally different lens, which is really moving from that me to we, and it's really stretching our cognitive capacity to think and experience and see ourselves as part of a system as embedded in the system. Yes, again, just like we were talking about earlier, Gaming Mind and I were shitting all over capitalism, and that is fundamentally why. Capitalism is fundamentally, systemically violent because it viscerally requires and rewards our separation, right? Families against families, businesses against businesses, countries against countries, right? So that it's toxically individualistic. And shifting from me, individualism, to quote collectivism, essentially cannot be done large scale within capitalism because capitalism does not reward cooperation. It does not reward the we. And of course, as we were talking about the education system earlier, which is filled with capitalist propaganda, which is one thing my policies want to fix, that we're definitely not going to get to we because of the corporate ownership of our governments and our school boards and our politicians. So yes, of course, it's stretching our capacity to think and experience and see ourselves as a part of systems because we don't teach systems theory. Right? That's a huge thing. That's what I say we need to teach. And capitalism doesn't reward thinking holistically. There's no money in that. That's a real significant shift for a lot of us to make, and it's not something that just happens intellectually. And it's not just something that just happens if you snap your fingers and say, okay, you know what? I'm going to now start thinking, feeling, and behaving like I'm in a system. Exactly right. And then again, it's not going to happen just like they're saying. It's not going to happen just by saying, oh, okay. It's something that we need to be teaching in our schools. So we need to change our economic system. We need to change the way we do business. It's hard to build the world of tomorrow with the technology and the ways of thinking of yesterday. And that's essentially what we're asking here, and that is fundamentally the problem. It's a process of continually reminding ourselves and each other that we are, in fact, joined up in part of a much bigger picture and a much bigger story. Exactly right. And again, my policies are all about this. The 8 philosophical pillars for peace, right? The very first and most important of those pillars is interdependence. Capitalism, monetary systems, methods of exchange are explicitly an abject rejection of our mutual interdependence, which results in that humanity's terminal disease, the disease of separation. Right here. You cannot realistically have a society and laws based on interdependence, based on systems thinking, when the system itself rewards toxic individualism and competition and exploitation. It's hard for us to think about that way when our socioeconomic system is abjectly antithetical or antagonistic towards systems thinking. Each one of us is actually, I don't care who you are, a vital character in that story. We are all protagonists in the story of meeting climate crisis and engaging with climate crisis. And that reframe is one that we need to just keep coming back to over and over again. This is just not about me. It's not just about me. It's about me in this bigger story. Have deep compassion for what you feel. It's absolutely essential that we start from a place of really having deep compassion for that feeling of nothing I can do will matter. So it's not like we shouldn't be feeling that, or there's something wrong with us for feeling that our individual actions are not sufficient. Actually, I'm just going to really connect with myself here and say, you know what? Yeah, it's really painful. It's really hard. Having that feeling is an expression of how deeply I'm connected and how deeply I care about what is happening on the planet. So if the end here is not activism and rioting, this is just a fluff piece. It's really, really important that we meet our experience, no matter what the experience is, overwhelmed, feeling insignificant, feeling frustrated, feeling angry, feeling numb, feeling checked out, that we meet that experience with total compassion. Okay, fair. It's only from that point that we're able to move into any kind of meaningful, impactful, creative response, where we are able to take stock questions of like, who am I, where am I, what do I, oh my God, channel this energy, this concern, this care that I have that's coming from inside of me, that's expressing itself. We have to start from that place. Okay, and then get pissed off and start rioting, right? It's important. It's really important that we don't try to be hope police on ourselves, forcing ourselves to feel more hopeful or more upbeat or positive. Okay, fair. And that's a trend I find really concerning and troubling, because if you just look at the psychological lens, it's not how it works. We don't force ourselves to suddenly feel and behave in certain ways. A solutioneer focuses exclusively on solutions and has no tolerance and no space for any kind of expression of feelings or uncertainty or ambivalence. It's almost a zealous focus on the solutions, and it can really shut people down. And it can really alienate a lot of people who are not there yet. They still are processing and asking questions like, what does this mean for us? Why are we still in this situation in the first place? Okay, well, okay. That's fair. I guess I'm not on either extreme here, because I talk about the problems and I say we're fucked, and I also talk about solutions as well. And I'm not, I more than appreciate people not having a clue, because it's taken me 15 years to get here, right? Studying politics and all that sort of stuff. And I also have, the experience of when the Amazon was on fire, that I was considering getting out of politics because I was so distraught. And I posted this to Facebook, and I don't post personal stuff ever because I'm an introvert. It's not my thing. And that's how distraught I was. I'm like, we're fucked. And what's the point anymore? So I quickly fucked up and kept going, but I get the we're fucked thing. But I'm also here, live streaming, trying to talk to people. I have my policies, and I'm trying to figure out how we solve things. We can do both. We can both break down and provide solutions. And frankly, that problem solution binary isn't totally appropriate for the solution we're in. This is a state of being that is going to be continuing for the foreseeable future. Doom and gloom versus hope dichotomy or binary is false, and it's one that we really need as communicators, journalists, and the media needs to be actively dismantling. Okay, in actuality, the path forward is a middle path, and that middle path is one of authenticity. It's really about authentic experience and authentic engagement with the crisis. There is enormous hopefulness and enormous positivity and deep inspiration and power with recognizing and facing directly the scale and the impact and the loss. We're living in a time of severe wildfire and drought and flooding, and we've got to be able to look at that directly in the eye without being accused of being negatively or focusing on doom. We've got to because that is what reality is. That is reality right now. Okay, so perhaps another way to talk about this is we need to compartmentalize. Yes, we have to be able to break down, say, holy fuck, we're all going to die. Humanity's going extinct. But we also need to say, okay, this is on fire. What can we do about this right now to help solve this? Because that's, yeah, being totally distraught and unable to function isn't going to help anything. If you're doing that, you know, I get it. You do what you have to do to get by and survive. Because for some, that's all they're going to be able to do. But if we can stand up and talk about it and do something about it, at least whatever way we can, that's a good thing. Humans need, first and foremost, to have their experience be validated. The way forward is through the lens of emotional intelligence. No, it's not. It means refuting an either or way approaching climate crisis. Doom and gloom or solutions only. Okay, I don't think anyone's doing one or the other. If we're doom and gloom, we want solutions too. I mean, It means getting out of the whiplash between positivity and the negativity. As I say in the TED Talk, that's an artificial construct. Our minds don't work that way. It's not only negative for us or only positive. It's more complicated than that. What companies can do to engage employees, get them involved in activism, start putting out statements that this shit's fucked up and we need to start doing a global strike, maybe, and give people days off to do the global strike. Perhaps that. There needs to be a level of endorsement at the leadership level, so that's one. But what's equally as important is that people within the organization are actively empowered to take initiative, to propose pilots, to run experiments, to try things out. Things we do on a company scale isn't going to do anything. Things we do on an individual scale isn't going to do anything in the large scheme of things. Either the United States and our national governments sit the fuck down and stop polluting and solve the problem, or we're all fucked. Now, this article is kind of pointing to individualism as part of the problem. You and I can't do much unless you're going to get into activism and start holding people accountable. Other than that, the individual things that you do isn't going to do anything. Sure, do your part. I'm not saying don't do your part, right? Try and do what you can. But ultimately, the push to do this towards this mentality of it's the individual's responsibility, not the corporations who are fucking everything up, or the rich who are fucking everything up, because they are the ones who have the most of the pollution, the rich and the corporations, right? You and I individually have very little. There was a push by the fossil fuel industry to shift the responsibility for climate change to the person, and that's not correct. And that's what this is kind of operating out of, and I'm not overly keen on that. The old model is a company deciding to be advocates of climate change and appointing a green team. That's kind of an older model. That's kind of what I see as model 1.0. The new model is one that is really exciting to me and is more human-centered. It's more authentic. It's more about coming together and looking at these issues together and talking about what to do about this. It's more inclusive. People feel that they are really part of this conversation. Okay, all right, sure. That can be useful and it can be powerful. If you can get people together talking about, say, yes, shit's fucked up, let's go do something about it, and then go do something about it. Specifically, storming the Capitol, holding walkouts, protests, demonstrations, and all that sort of stuff. If this conversation doesn't lead to action, I mean, sure, it's useful to get your feelings through and dealing with it, coping, and all that sort of stuff, but action is what is needed. There have been more people at different levels in the organization, in different parts of the organization, who are given the platform and ability to initiate, to mobilize, to move things forward. It doesn't only live at the C-suite. And ideally, if it's done well, each person, no matter what part of the company you're in, feels that they have a stake in this climate change response. Nobody's exempting themselves because they don't know enough about the climate. And if an effective response is one where everyone has something to add here and is a part of that response, especially because it's a hoax. It means creating an atmosphere where everyone all has a vital role. Again, I don't like this because it really puts it down on the individual, puts it down to the individual businesses, and that's not where this belongs. Of course, corporate media, what are we gonna do? Because what really drives change is when people feel invited, they feel heard, understood, and included. Okay, fair. One example of how to start this is hosting circles. I train people to facilitate climate circles or conversations, which are small groups where people meet over a duration of time, and then they just simply come together, talk about what they're feeling and thinking about the issues. And before long, it becomes about action. It really does. Yeah, and I was a few years ago, I was hosting, I was facilitating talks. I did a few of them, and I didn't do. Did I do one on climate change? I think I did sex and gender and poverty. I don't think I did climate change. I might have done. I can't remember. No, I'm pretty sure I didn't. But that would be that's an idea. Maybe I should go ahead and do that again. Okay, people don't stay that long in the feeling, but you need to at least have that space to go there before getting into action planning. And if we jump right into actions and bypass discussing how people feel, then we shortchange and we short circuit the potential to really do some amazing work. Okay, I'm kind of mixed on this article, but interesting. Okay. All right, people. Questions, comments, suggestions, thoughts? I only have 5 minutes left. Can we get through this next one? I know this one's pretty long. Oh, it's actually not too long. All right, we'll go through this. All right, Illinois just won a big green jobs victory. In Illinois last week, a coalition of unions and environmentalists scored a major victory with a law providing for miniature Green New Deal, billions invested in clean energy, commitment to decarbonizing solid labor standards, and embrace of nuclear power. Okay, that's not good. Okay. Billionaire Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, hardly a tribune of the people, signed one of the nation's most sweeping green energy bills into law on September 15th. Called the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act, SB 2408, invests in renewable energy and electric transportation while making enormous advances in workers' rights and equity in these sectors. There's a lot of good news for the future of life on Earth. It's also groundbreaking for climate policy in protecting the interests of the workers. The bill came about through the lobbying and organizing of Climate Jobs Illinois, a coalition of significant labor unions. Pat Devaney, Secretary Treasurer of the Illinois AFL-CIO and a leader in CJI, told Jacobin that the group, formed 18 months ago, aimed to address climate change while putting the worker at the forefront. Cool. There's a lot for an environmentalist or anyone suffering from terror of the climate apocalypse to love about this bill. SB 2408 makes Illinois the first coal-producing state and the first Midwestern state to commit to a carbon-free future, putting the state on a path to achieve carbon-free power by 2045 and 100% clean energy by 2050. Okay, this is nowhere near aggressive enough. I mean, sure, you're working towards it, but ultimately the next legislature can undo this, and they probably will because that's where the money is at. This is nowhere near aggressive enough. Again, I have the same bitch about Biden's ridiculous limp dick policies, and this is, I mean, it's something, right? But it's nowhere near what's needed. If this is not 2030, right? So carbon-free power by 2026 and 100% clean energy by 2030, then it's not enough. Strikingly, proving how crucial it is that labor lead the political response to climate change, this bill also offers gains for workers, setting high standards for wages, and benefits for any employer receiving renewable energy credits from the state. Okay, cool. SB 2408 is also targeted to benefit working class and poor communities and neighborhoods, investing $115 million for small business development and $78 million for electric transportation for charging infrastructure, for example, in poor neighborhoods. Okay, cool. It also increases community solar production, shared solar facilities that make this form of energy more affordable fivefold. Okay. So a part of this should have been have electric production to be publicly owned. That should have been part of this. CGI, the labor coalition responsible for the bill, includes building trades unions such as Chicago Regional Council of Carpenters and the Labor's Union Great Lakes and Midwest regions, as well as Service Employees International Union, State Council United Auto Workers, Region 4, and the teachers' unions. The bill's content reflects its diverse labor coalition in some creative ways, investing significantly, for instance, in greening and upgrading public school buildings, making them safer for students and teachers, a state-level variation on Socialist Congressman Jamal Bowman's Green New Deal for public schools. That's cool. Some readers might look askance at SB 2408's heavy investment in nuclear energy. Yeah, that I definitely would. Though these provisions were initially opposed by Governor Pritzker and the major environmental groups, nuclear energy wasn't a matter of strong disagreement among the unions. Of course, they don't fucking care. They just want jobs. Who noted that nuclear now accounts for 90% of clean energy in the state, many thousands of jobs, and 149 million in property taxes that fund schools and other vital public. Yeah, so that's a large part of the problem. It should be, well, okay, Illinois. Well, geothermal is what they should be concentrating on, although that is expensive. Yeah, the big issue is geothermal, and that's what we need to be concentrating on for baseload power, not, my God. The time it's going to take to get fucking some nuclear plants up and running, you could have shitloads of solar panels and batteries and wind turbines out there. I mean, that's just ridiculous. Disasters like Chernobyl, along with the possibility of terrorist attacks on nuclear plants, understandably haunt the public consciousness. These fears are legitimate, but they should be balanced by consideration of some compelling certainties. Our fossil fuel dependency is already killing us, giving us the magnitude of threat from carbon. The left must be willing to give serious consideration to a role for nuclear power as a way out of climate apocalypse. No, we fucking don't. Geothermal. Take the billions or millions from nuclear power and put it into geothermal. For every single nuclear coal plant, you can put in basically 9, depending on the size of the coal plant, geothermal plants in there and get 9 times the energy out of it. No. Nuclear energy is carbon neutral, so it doesn't contribute to climate change. Safety standards in the industry have improved over the years. Just no. There's also a labor argument for nuclear energy. The jobs in nuclear are mostly better than those in solar and winds. Okay, that's fair. Some nuclear advocates like Madison Sherwinski of the Campaign for the Green New Deal also argue that as states move away from fossil fuels, nuclear will provide the best way to stabilize the grid as a backup when renewables aren't adequate and keep electricity affordable for working people. No. Title, geothermal. That's your base load right there. Most major environmental groups still oppose nuclear energy, but perhaps the urgency of the climate crisis and the economic justice agreements will prevail. On the national level, Green New Deal remains elusive, though clean energy advocates are fighting hard for as much green investment as possible in the bipartisan infrastructure bill, including Bauman's Green New Deal for public schools, as well as in the broader 3.5 trillion package championed by Bernie Sanders, which again is nowhere near enough. Again, if that number is not over 10 trillion per year, you're not saving humanity from extinction. On September 17th, Congresswoman Cori Bush and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez introduced a Green New Deal for cities, counties, states, tribes, and territories, proposing to invest $1 trillion in addressing the climate crisis at the state and local level while creating jobs. $1 trillion, again, is nowhere near enough. Again, if it's not 10 trillion, it's not enough. Many cities and states are moving more quickly than the federal government. Austin, Los Angeles, New York City, and Boston have all adopted some form of local Green New Deal, and so has the state of New Mexico. California, Hawaii, New York, Virginia, and Washington State have all, like Illinois, passed legislation obliging a zero-carbon future, though all of them still need to do much more and act more quickly to make that future a reality. All these efforts, local and national, are going to require robust coalitions and dedication from the labor movement. Okay, Illinois has just demonstrated that that can happen, and when it does, we can win big, although not save humanity from extinction. Okay, so there we go. Mixed bag, some good stuff there. It's a good step forward. Any last questions, comments, and suggestions before we call this a day, my peeps? We've reached 7 o'clock, got our 2 hours in. Again, I'm sorry for being gone for this whole last week. We had construction going on here in the house. Yeah, it just happened to be happening right when I was doing or when I would have been doing my stream. So that's been a thing. Anything? Last call for comments. Anything random? Anything at all? My freaks, my peeps, anything? Anything? All right, everyone, thank you so much for gifting me with your time. Everyone have a great week. And again, I will be here on Thursday at 5 p.m. and Saturday at 3 p.m. Central. Those are my normal streaming times. If you want to follow me in other places, here on Twitch, I've got my About Me, which has got links to my policy page, my blog, Discord, all that sort of stuff, my Patreon as well. So everyone, have a great week. We'll see you later.
Just me and you, let's make up all the rules. Count to 10 and watch the stars turn blue. Watch the stars.